Take the lug nuts off, use a 19mm socket. Take the wheel off. Take this bolt out right here, use a 12mm socket. This holds the brake hose on, and this is just to give you a little more slack on the brake hose. Just slide the brake hose off there. Now use a 14mm socket and take these two caliper bolts out. If the pad pin or slide pin starts spinning, you can use a wrench on that or even a pair of pliers. Take those out. Now take the brake caliper out. If you need to, you can use a screwdriver and just pry it out a little bit. The inboard brake pad is going to come out with the caliper. Just rock it back and forth a little bit. Just make it a little easier. There you go. Now just take a brake caliper hanger and slide it through there. And you can hang this on the coil spring or the upper control arm. Right there, just make sure there's no tension on the brake hose. And we're just going to leave that brake pad in there for now. And take the outboard brake pad off. Just slide it out. Now take this caliper bracket off. You need to take these two bolts out. Use a 17mm socket. And slide the bracket out. Before you take the rotor off or even hit it with a hammer, there should be two screws right there and there. Take those out. They should be Phillips head or T30 Torx screws. But if those aren't there, then you're all set to pull this off. This vehicle doesn't have those. Now we can take the rotor off. You can use a hammer and just tap in these locations. Just make sure you don't hit the studs. You don't want to ruin them. And also, if you have a threaded bolt that will thread into these two holes, you can use that to help you get the rotor off. But you should be able to get it off just like this. You can give it a couple taps from the back side and then rotate it. There we go. And just slide it off. When you take the rotor off, there should be a rubber grommet on there. You want to take that off and transfer it over to the new one. This vehicle doesn't have those. Now you want to clean up this hub a little bit. You can use a die grinder or a wire brush and just get rid of some of that rust. If you're using a die grinder, just be careful, don't sand it down too much. I'm just going to take some anti-seize and just put a nice thin coat just on the hub. Not too much, nice and thin. Now take the rotor, flip it on backwards first. We're just going to clean the back side. Use some brake parts cleaner. Wipe it down. You can flip it around. Before you put it on, there is your parking brake shoes right here, and the adjuster is down here. You can tighten it and loosen it depending on what you need. And then line these holes up with the threaded holes. Just like that. And use some brake parts cleaner. Clean this side. And wipe it down. If you have those two screws, put those two screws in, just snug them up, not too tight, and then put that rubber grommet in. Now we're going to clean up the caliper bracket. Just get a straight blade screwdriver, take these pad slides or pad clips off, and you can take a wire brush and clean up all this rust on here. If it's really bad, you can use a die grinder, just don't take off too much material. Take some brake caliper grease and just put it in that area right there. Put the new pad slide on and just put another thin coat of grease right here. Do the same on the other side. Now we can take these slide pins out. Take a little brake parts cleaner. Clean these off. And if it was really bad, if there was some corrosion in there, you want to take some brake parts cleaner and clean out the inside as well. This wasn't too bad. And just take some brake caliper grease, grease up the pin. Reinsert it. Make sure the seal seals properly, and then do the same on the other one. Take the caliper bracket, slide it over the rotor, and put the bolts back in. Get them started. Now torque these bolts to 80 foot-pounds. Now we can take the brake caliper hanger off and take the caliper. And use a brake caliper compressing tool. And with the brake pad still in there, I'm just going to compress the caliper and do this nice and slow. The brake fluid's going to go through the caliper, through the hose, through the brake lines, back up into the master cylinder reservoir. And you can remove the tool, grab the brake pad, and slide it out. Now we're going to replace this piece. This is a spring, just holds down the brake pads. So we'll just take the old one out. You can use a screwdriver, straight blade screwdriver, and just pop this in. Just push it towards the inside. It pops out. Take the new one, slide it in the same way the old one came out. Take the screwdriver, just slide it back a little bit. And just pop it forward, and there you go. Now take the new brake pads, and this flat one's going to go on the outside on the brake caliper bracket, and this other one is going to go on the inboard side. And depending on what side you're working on, the part with the squealer is going to go towards the bottom. So just slide this in position and just push it down so it's flush. That looks good. The spring's going to push the pad out a little bit, so don't worry about that. And just slide it in position. And put the bolts back in. Get them both started. And if the pins start spinning, you can use pliers or a wrench to stop those from spinning. And torque these down to 17 foot-pounds. Now take this bolt and put the brake hose back in position. Get the bracket lined up. Snug it down. Looks good. And put the tire on. The lug nuts back on. I'm going to torque the lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds in a star pattern or a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. And just go around again, double check. You want to make sure you pump the brake pedal. There's going to be an air gap between the brake pad and the brake caliper piston. So make sure it feels good. Then check the brake fluid level and adjust accordingly. To get the top off, you can take this trim off and just take this trim piece off. It just pops right up.